The blood on Benjamin Dalton's hands had barely dried when he heard his twin sons crying in the back of the covered wagon, their wails piercing through the Texas night like arrows through his already shattered heart. He stood there in the darkness outside Johnson City, unable to move, unable to think, unable to do anything except stare at the fresh grave he had just finished digging beneath the cottonwood tree where his wife had loved to sit and watch the sunset. Mary had been gone for 3 hours now, taken by childbed fever that no amount of prayer or medicine could stop, and Benjamin felt as hollow as the wind that swept across the prairie. The year was 1873, and Benjamin had brought his family west from Missouri with dreams of starting a cattle ranch in the hill country of Texas. He was 26 years old, strong as an ox, capable of breaking horses and roping steers with the best of them, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Nothing could have prepared him for becoming a widower with 2 18-month-old boys who needed their mother more than they needed anything else in this world. Thomas and William had been crying for hours, their small voices growing hoarse, and Benjamin knew he should go to them, pick them up, comfort them somehow. But his legs would not carry him back to that wagon. Every time he looked at those boys, he saw Mary's eyes staring back at him, and the grief threatened to pull him under like quicksand. He had been standing there for what felt like an eternity when he heard it. A voice, clear and sweet as honey, drifting through the night air. Someone was singing, a lullaby he did not recognize, with words that seemed to wrap around his broken heart and squeeze gently. The crying from the wagon began to soften, the desperate wails turning to hiccups and then to silence. Benjamin turned toward the sound, his hand instinctively moving to the pistol at his hip, but what he saw stopped him cold. A woman stood beside his wagon, silhouetted against the moonlight, her long, dark hair hanging loose down her back. She was young, he could tell that much, and she held Thomas in one arm while William clung to her skirt with chubby fingers. She swayed gently as she sang, her voice carrying notes that seemed to come from somewhere deep and ancient. Benjamin should have been angry that a stranger had approached his children, should have demanded to know who she was and what she was doing there, but all he could feel was an overwhelming sense of relief that someone, anyone, had been able to quiet the boys when he could not. He walked toward her slowly, his boots crunching on the dry grass, and she turned to face him. Even in the darkness, he could see that she was beautiful, with high cheekbones and dark eyes that held a sadness matching his own. She could not have been more than 22 or 23, dressed in a simple calico dress that had seen better days, with dust on her hem and weariness in her posture. "I am sorry," she said softly, her accent marking her as educated despite her worn appearance. "I was passing by and heard them crying. I could not help myself. Children should not cry like that." Benjamin cleared his throat, trying to find words that had abandoned him. "No need to apologize. I should thank you. I could not seem to make them stop." The woman looked at him with those dark eyes, and he felt as though she could see straight through to his soul. "You just buried someone," she said quietly. It was not a question. "The boy's mother?" He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. Thomas had fallen asleep against the woman's shoulder, his tear-stained face finally peaceful. William yawned and rubbed his eyes with tiny fists. "My name is Sophia Jenkins," she said. "I have been traveling for 3 days, trying to reach San Antonio. My horse went lame about 2 miles back, and I have been walking since sunset. I saw your fire and thought perhaps I might ask for water, but then I heard the children." "Benjamin Dalton," he managed to say. "These are my boys, Thomas and William. We were headed to the ranch I bought sight unseen about 10 miles north of here. But my wife, she took sick after we crossed into Texas. The doctor in Johnson City could not save her." Sophia shifted Thomas gently in her arms. "I am so very sorry for your loss. Would you like me to help you get them settled for the night? They are exhausted, poor things." Benjamin wanted to refuse, wanted to tell her he could manage on his own, but the truth was, he could not. He had no idea how to care for 2 babies by himself. Mary had always been the one who knew what they needed, when they were hungry, when they were tired, how to soothe them when they fretted. He was lost without her, drowning in a sea of grief and responsibility that he had no map to navigate. "I would be grateful," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. Sophia climbed into the wagon with practiced ease, cradling Thomas carefully, and Benjamin lifted William up to her before following them inside. The interior of the wagon was cramped and cluttered with all their worldly possessions, but Mary had made it cozy with quilts and pillows. Her scent still lingered in the air, lavender and soap, and Benjamin felt his throat tighten. Sophia laid Thomas down on a pallet of blankets and then took William from Benjamin's arms, settling him beside his brother. She covered them with a quilt and began singing again, that same haunting melody that had stopped their crying earlier. Benjamin stood there watching her, this stranger who had appeared out of the darkness like an angel, and wondered what twist of fate had brought her to this exact spot at this exact moment. When the boys were deeply asleep, Sophia climbed back out of the wagon, and Benjamin followed. They stood together in the cool night air, the silence between them heavy with unspoken things. "Why were you traveling alone to San Antonio?" Benjamin asked, because he needed to say something. Needed to break the terrible quiet that pressed down on him whenever he stopped moving. Sophia wrapped her arms around herself, though the night was not particularly cold. "I was a teacher in a small town in Louisiana. When my father died last year, I had no family left, no reason to stay. A friend wrote to me about a position at a school in San Antonio, so I decided to take a chance. I sold everything I owned to buy passage on a stage, but when we stopped in Johnson City, the driver informed me there was no more room. He had oversold tickets and decided I was the one who would be left behind. I used what little money I had left to buy a horse, but she stepped in a hole this afternoon and came up lame. I had to leave her with a farmer who promised to care for her." "So, you have nothing?" Benjamin asked, though he already knew the answer. "I have my teaching certificate and the clothes on my back," Sophia said with a wry smile. "I have been in worse situations, though I confess not many." Benjamin looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the strength beneath the exhaustion. This was a woman who had faced hardship and survived, who had not let circumstance break her. He thought of the long road ahead, of trying to build a ranch while caring for 2 babies, of all the ways he was going to fail without help. "I know we just met," he said slowly, "and I know this is going to sound like madness, but I need help. Those boys need someone who knows how to care for them. I can pay you wages, give you room and board. The ranch house is supposed to be habitable, though I have not seen it yet. If you would consider working for me as a nanny, at least until I can get on my feet, I would be in your debt." Sophia studied him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face. "You are offering me a position, just like that? I know it is not San Antonio, and I know you wanted to be a teacher, but my boys need you. I need you. I cannot do this alone, and I have no shame in admitting it." Benjamin's voice cracked on the last words, and he looked away, embarrassed by his own vulnerability. "Mr. Dalton," Sophia said softly, "I think perhaps God brought me to this place for a reason. I accept your offer." Relief flooded through Benjamin so powerfully that his knees almost buckled. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." They stood there in the darkness for a while longer, 2 broken souls who had found each other by chance, neither of them knowing that this moment would change the course of their lives forever. The next morning, Benjamin woke before dawn to find Sophia already up and tending to the boys. She had changed their soiled clothes, washed their faces, and was feeding them bits of softened biscuit soaked in milk. Thomas and William sat on a blanket spread on the ground, their earlier distress forgotten, reaching for the food with eager hands. The sight should have brought Benjamin comfort, but instead, it made the ache in his chest worse. This was supposed to be Mary sitting there with their sons, Mary laughing at their messy faces, Mary planning their future. Sophia looked up and caught his expression. She did not say anything, just gave him a small nod of understanding, and Benjamin was grateful. He did not want platitudes or reassurances. He just wanted to get through each moment without falling apart. They broke camp quickly, loading everything back into the wagon. Benjamin hitched up the team of horses while Sophia kept the boys entertained. When everything was ready, she climbed up onto the wagon seat with Thomas on her lap, while Benjamin held William and took up the reins. The morning sun was just starting to paint the eastern sky pink and gold as they set off toward the ranch that would be their new home. The land between Johnson City and Benjamin's property was typical Texas hill country, all rolling grassland dotted with live oak and mesquite trees. Wildflowers bloomed in patches of purple and yellow, and Benjamin tried to see it through Mary's eyes, tried to imagine what she would have thought of this place. She had been so excited about the move, so full of plans and dreams. She had talked endlessly about the garden she would plant, the chickens she would raise, the friends they would make in this new territory. Now, all those dreams lay buried beneath a cottonwood tree, and Benjamin was left to carry on without her. "Tell me about the ranch," Sophia said, breaking into his dark thoughts. "What do you know about it?" Benjamin cleared his throat. "I bought it from a man named Harold Prescott. He was heading back east after his wife died, said he could not stand to stay in a place that reminded him of her. The letter said, there is a house with 4 rooms, a barn, a well, and about 300 acres of good grazing land. He left behind some cattle, maybe 50 head, and a few horses. I am supposed to have the deed waiting for me at the ranch, along with the keys." "It sounds like a good start," Sophia said, bouncing Thomas gently as the wagon jostled over the rough road. "Do you have experience with cattle?" "I grew up on a farm in Missouri, mostly crops, but we had some livestock. I worked as a ranch hand for a few years before I married Mary, so I know my way around cattle and horses well enough. My plan was to build up the herd, maybe hire some help once I got established. Now, I suppose all those plans will have to change." "Why?" Sophia asked, looking at him curiously. "Why should your plans change?" Benjamin gestured toward the boys. "Because I have them to think about. I cannot spend 12 hours a day on the range when I have 2 babies who need constant attention. I cannot take them with me, and I certainly cannot leave them alone." "But you have hired me to care for them," Sophia pointed out. "That is why I am here. You should pursue your plans, Mr. Dalton. Build your ranch. I will make sure your sons are safe and happy." Benjamin wanted to argue, wanted to say that it was not that simple, but the truth was she was right. He had hired her precisely so he could continue working. The problem was that accepting help felt like admitting he could not handle things on his own, like acknowledging that he was not enough for his children. Pride and grief made strange bedfellows, tangling together in his chest until he could hardly breathe. They rode in silence for a while, the only sounds the creaking of the wagon wheels and the jingling of the harness. William fell asleep against Benjamin's chest, his small body warm and trusting, and Benjamin felt a fierce surge of protectiveness. These boys were all he had left of Mary. He would build them a good life here, no matter what it took. The ranch appeared around mid-morning, nestled in a valley between 2 low hills. The house was larger than Benjamin had expected, built of sturdy limestone with a wide front porch and a stone chimney. The barn was in good repair, and he could see cattle grazing in the distance. Harold Prescott had not exaggerated in his letter. This was indeed a fine property. Sophia drew in a sharp breath. "It is beautiful," she said softly. Benjamin felt a small spark of something that might have been hope. Maybe this could work. Maybe he could build something here for his sons, something that would honor Mary's memory and give them a future worth having. He drove the wagon up to the house and set the brake. As promised, there was a key hanging on a nail beside the front door, along with a sealed envelope. Benjamin climbed down and retrieved both, breaking the seal on the envelope to find the deed and a short note from Harold Prescott wishing him well. The words were simple but sincere, written by a man who understood loss. The inside of the house was dusty but clean, furnished with simple, sturdy pieces that Harold had left behind. There was a main room with a fireplace and a kitchen area, 2 bedrooms, and a small room that might have been used for storage. The windows were tall and let in plenty of light, and Benjamin could see that with some work, this could be a comfortable home. Sophia walked through the rooms with Thomas on her hip, taking everything in with those observant dark eyes. "The boys can share 1 bedroom," she said. "You should take the larger one. I can sleep in the small room if you can spare a cot." "There is a spare bed in the barn loft," Benjamin said. "I will bring it down and set it up for you. You should not have to sleep on a cot when you are doing me such a favor." "I am not doing you a favor, Mr. Dalton. You are paying me wages, remember? This is a job." But she smiled as she said it, taking the edge off the words. They spent the rest of the day unloading the wagon and settling in. Benjamin carried furniture in boxes while Sophia organized the kitchen and made the bedrooms habitable. The boys toddled around exploring their new home, getting into everything with the fearless curiosity of children who did not yet understand danger. Sophia watched them with patient attentiveness, always there to catch them before they fell or redirect them away from the fireplace. By evening, Benjamin was exhausted, his body aching from the physical labor, and his heart aching from the constant reminders of Mary's absence. He should be showing her the house, should be listening to her plans for where to put things and what colors to paint the walls. Instead, he was working alongside a stranger who had appeared out of nowhere and somehow made herself indispensable in the span of a single day. Sophia made dinner from their supplies, a simple meal of beans and cornbread, but it was the first real food Benjamin had eaten in days, and he was grateful. They sat at the rough wooden table, the boys in makeshift high chairs that Harold Prescott had left behind, and ate in companionable silence. When the meal was finished, Sophia took the boys to give them baths in a large tin tub she had found in the barn. Benjamin could hear her singing to them, that same haunting melody from the night before, and the sound made something in his chest twist painfully. He walked outside to escape it, standing on the porch and staring out at the darkening land. The evening star had appeared low on the horizon, bright and steady, and Benjamin wondered if Mary could see it from wherever she was now. He wondered if she was angry at him for hiring another woman to care for their sons, or if she understood that he had no choice. He wondered if she knew how much he missed her, how the grief was like a physical weight pressing down on him every moment of every day. "They are asleep," Sophia said from behind him, and Benjamin turned to find her standing in the doorway, backlit by the lamp inside. They went down easily after their bath. I think all the excitement of the new place wore them out. "Thank you," Benjamin said, "for everything. I do not know what I would have done without you today." Sophia stepped out onto the porch, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "You would have managed. People always do." "I am not so sure about that." Benjamin leaned against the porch railing, suddenly feeling every one of his 26 years. "I keep thinking I should know what to do, should have some instinct for taking care of them. But I feel lost. Mary always handled everything. I just worked and came home tired. I did not appreciate how much she did until she was gone." "That is the way of things, I think," Sophia said quietly. "We never truly appreciate what we have until we lose it. But you are learning. Mr. Dalton, give yourself time." "Please," Benjamin said. "Call me Benjamin. We are going to be living under the same roof. No need for such formality." Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. And you may call me Sophia." They stood together in the darkness, watching fireflies dance across the grass. The night was full of sounds, crickets and frogs, and the distant howl of a coyote. Benjamin thought about how strange life was, how, just a few days ago, he had been a husband, and now he was a widower. How just yesterday he had been alone and desperate, and now he had help. Nothing in life was permanent, he realized. Everything could change in a heartbeat. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Benjamin woke before dawn and went out to work the ranch, checking on the cattle, mending fences, and familiarizing himself with every acre of his new property. Sophia stayed at the house with the boys, cooking and cleaning and caring for them with a patience that seemed endless. She taught them simple songs and games, helped them learn new words, and kept them safe from the 100 dangers that lurked around a working ranch. In the evenings, Benjamin would return exhausted and dusty to find dinner waiting, and the house transformed into something that felt almost like a home. Sophia never pushed him to talk about Mary, never pried into his grief, but she was there, a steady presence that kept him from drowning completely. Sometimes he would catch her watching him with those dark eyes, and he wondered what she saw when she looked at him. A broken man? A lost soul? A father trying desperately to hold himself together for his children? 2 weeks passed this way, then 3. The boys grew more attached to Sophia every day, running to her when they fell, reaching for her when they were tired. Benjamin told himself he was glad they had someone to depend on, but a small, petty part of him felt jealous. He was their father, but he was also a stranger to them in many ways. He had always been the one who left for work, and Mary had been the one who stayed. Now that pattern continued with Sophia in Mary's place, and the boys were simply following what they knew. One evening in late June, Benjamin came home to find Sophia sitting on the porch steps with her face in her hands. The boys were playing in the yard, supervised but not closely, and Benjamin felt a jolt of alarm. In all the weeks she had been there, he had never seen Sophia show any sign of distress. He dismounted quickly and tied his horse to the rail. "What is wrong? Are the boys all right?" Sophia looked up, and he saw that she had been crying. Her eyes were red and her cheeks were wet, and Benjamin felt helpless in the face of her tears. "They are fine," she said, her voice thick. "I am sorry. I should not fall apart like this. It is just that today would have been my father's birthday, and I miss him terribly. I have been holding it together for weeks, but sometimes the grief catches up with you when you least expect it. Benjamin sat down beside her on the steps, maintaining a respectful distance but close enough to offer comfort. "I understand," he said quietly. "Some days are harder than others. I woke up this morning and for just a moment, I forgot that Mary was gone. I turned to tell her something, and the reality hit me all over again. It never gets easier, does it? You just get better at carrying the weight." Sophia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I am sorry. You have your own grief to bear. You do not need mine added to it." "Grief is not a burden we can measure and divide," Ani Benjamin said. "Pain is pain. Loss is loss. You have every right to miss your father." She gave him a watery smile. "Thank you for understanding. Sometimes I feel very alone in the world, even though I am surrounded by people." Benjamin knew exactly what she meant. He felt the same way most days, isolated by his sorrow, even when his sons were climbing on him, and Sophia was chatting about household matters. Grief was a lonely country, and those who had not visited it could never truly understand. "Tell me about him," Benjamin said. "Your father. What was he like?" Sophia's expression softened. "He was a professor of literature at a small college. He loved books more than almost anything, except maybe my mother. When she died giving birth to me, everyone said he would remarry, but he never did. He said she was the only woman he could ever love, and he would rather be alone than settle for less. He raised me himself, taught me to read and write, encouraged me to pursue education even though most people thought it was improper for a woman. He was my whole world." "He sounds like a good man," Benjamin said. "He was, and I think he would be proud of me for taking this position, for making a life for myself instead of sitting around mourning. He always said that the best way to honor the dead was to live fully." Sophia drew in a shaky breath. "Some days I manage that better than others." "You are doing remarkably well," Benjamin said, and he meant it. "You came to a strange place with nothing, took a job working for a grieving widower with 2 young children, and you have made it work. You have made more than work. You have made it good. Those boys love you. I do not know what we would do without you." Sophia looked at him, really looked at him, and something passed between them, some spark of connection that Benjamin had not felt since Mary died. It startled him, made him pull back slightly, because he was not ready for this. He was not ready to feel anything except grief and responsibility. But Sophia had already turned away, standing up and brushing dust from her skirt. "I should get the boys washed up for dinner," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "You must be hungry after working all day." Benjamin nodded, not trusting himself to speak. He watched her walk across the yard and scoop up William while calling to Thomas, and he wondered what he had just felt. Attraction, gratitude, some confusing mix of both. Whatever it was, he needed to push it down and ignore it. Sophia was his employee, nothing more. She was there to help with his sons, not to fill the hole that Mary had left in his heart. But as the summer wore on and the days grew longer and hotter, Benjamin found it increasingly difficult to ignore the way Sophia made him feel. It was not just that she was beautiful, though she certainly was. It was the way she sang to the boys in the evenings, her voice clear and sweet. It was the way she laughed when Thomas tried to catch chickens in the yard, the way she patiently taught William to stack blocks, the way she always had a pot of coffee ready when Benjamin came in from work. It was the small kindnesses she showed him without expecting anything in return, the way she seemed to understand his moods and give him space when he needed it. He tried to tell himself it was too soon, that Mary had only been gone for a few months, that feeling anything for another woman was a betrayal of his wife's memory. But the heart, he was learning, did not follow any logical timeline. The heart wanted what it wanted. Grief and guilt be damned. One afternoon in late July, Benjamin was fixing a broken fence post when he heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching fast. He looked up to see 3 riders coming across the open grassland, moving with the kind of purpose that usually meant trouble. Benjamin set down his tools and walked toward the house, his hand resting on the pistol at his hip. Out here in the Texas frontier, you learn to be cautious with strangers. The riders pulled up in front of the house, and Benjamin saw that they were rough-looking men, unshaven and hard-eyed, with the kind of weapons that suggested they were more than simple cowboys. The leader was a tall man with a scar running down his left cheek, and when he smiled, it did not reach his eyes. "Afternoon," the man said, his voice deceptively pleasant. We are looking for water and maybe some food if you can spare it. We have been riding hard for 2 days. Benjamin kept his expression neutral. The well is over there. Help yourselves to water. As for food, I am afraid I cannot spare much. We are only just getting settled here ourselves. The scarred man looked past Benjamin toward the house, and Benjamin saw his gaze sharpen with interest. Sophia had appeared in the doorway, holding Thomas, with William clinging to her skirt. She looked frightened, and Benjamin cursed himself for not telling her to stay inside. "That is a pretty woman you have got there," the scarred man said. "Your wife?" "My employee," Benjamin said flatly. "The boy's nanny." "Is that so?" The man exchanged glances with his companions. "Must be nice, having a young woman around to warm your bed and take care of the children." Benjamin felt anger flare hot in his chest. "That is enough. Take your water and move on." The scarred man laughed. "Now, there is no need to be unfriendly. We are just making conversation. Maybe your nanny would like some different company for a change. A man gets tired of looking at the same face every day, I imagine." Benjamin pulled his pistol in one smooth motion and aimed it at the man's chest. "I said that is enough. Water your horses and ride out, or I will give you a reason to leave faster." The 3 men tensed, their hands moving toward their own weapons, and Benjamin knew he was in trouble. He was outnumbered 3-1, and if shooting started, Sophia and the boys could get hurt. But he could not back down now, could not show weakness in front of men like these. "Benjamin." Sophia's voice cut through the tension, calm and steady. "Perhaps our visitors would like some coffee before they go. It is hot, and they have been riding hard." Benjamin wanted to tell her to get back inside, but he recognized what she was doing. She was giving everyone a way to back down without losing face. Smart woman. The scarred man considered for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Coffee sounds good. Much obliged, madam." Benjamin holstered his pistol, but kept his hand near it as the men dismounted and watered their horses. Sophia disappeared back into the house and returned with a pot of coffee and some cups. She poured for the men with steady hands, though Benjamin could see the fear in her eyes. The boys had been taken inside, probably shut in a bedroom where they would be safer. The men drank their coffee quickly, not bothering with conversation now that the moment of danger had passed. When they were finished, the scarred man tipped his hat to Sophia and swung back into his saddle. "Much obliged for the hospitality," he said. "Maybe we will see you folks around?" "I doubt it," Benjamin said. "We keep to ourselves out here." The men rode off, and Benjamin stood watching until they were out of sight. Only then did he let himself relax, his shoulders dropping and his breath coming out in a long exhale. Sophia appeared beside him, her face pale. "Do you think they will come back?" she asked quietly. "I do not know," Benjamin admitted. "But we need to be more careful. I should teach you how to shoot just in case. And from now on, keep the boys inside when strangers come around." Sophia nodded, then surprised him by reaching out and touching his arm. "Thank you for standing up for me, for protecting us." Benjamin looked down at her hand on his arm, feeling the warmth of her touch through his shirt sleeve. "You are under my protection," he said. "I will not let anyone hurt you or the boys. I promise you that." Something in Sophia's expression shifted, softened, and Benjamin found himself leaning closer to her, without quite meaning to. Her eyes were so dark, like pools of deep water, and he could see flecks of gold in them that he had never noticed before. She smelled like soap and bread dough and something uniquely her, and Benjamin realized with a start that he wanted to kiss her, wanted it badly enough that it scared him. He stepped back quickly, breaking the moment. "I should get back to work," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "Call if you need anything." He walked away before she could respond, before he could do something stupid and reckless, like pull her into his arms. His heart was pounding and his hands were shaking, and he did not know if it was from the confrontation with the strangers or from the realization that he had feelings for Sophia that went far beyond gratitude or simple attraction. That night, Benjamin lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything that had happened. He thought about Mary, about the life they had planned together and how it had all been ripped away. He thought about Sophia, about how she had come into his life at the darkest moment and brought light back into it. He thought about his sons, about the future he wanted to build for them. And he realized, with a clarity that was almost painful, that he was falling in love with Sophia Jenkins. It was too soon. It was inappropriate. It was probably a dozen other things that would make people shake their heads and gossip. But it was also true. somewhere between that first night when she had sung his sons to sleep and today when she had stood beside him in the face of danger, she had worked her way into his heart. The question was, what was he going to do about it? Benjamin spent the next few weeks trying to sort out his feelings. He threw himself into work on the ranch, spending long days in the saddle and coming home too exhausted to think. But no amount of physical labor could quiet his mind or change what he felt. Sophia was there every morning with coffee and breakfast, there every evening with dinner and conversation, there in his thoughts every moment in between. He watched her with the boys and saw not just a hired nanny, but a mother in every way that mattered. He watched her move around the house and saw not just an employee, but a woman building a home. He watched her smile and heard her laugh and felt his heart clench with longing, but he did not act on his feelings because he was terrified of ruining what they had. If he told her how he felt and she did not feel the same way, she might leave, and then where would he be? Back to struggling alone, trying to care for two young boys while running a ranch. He could not risk that. He would not risk that. So he kept his feelings locked away and tried to maintain the careful distance they had established. But it grew harder every day, especially when he caught her watching him with an expression he could not quite read. Sometimes he thought he saw something in her eyes that mirrored his own feelings, but he told himself he was imagining it, seeing what he wanted to see rather than what was really there. August brought scorching heat and occasional thunderstorms that rolled across the plains with spectacular displays of lightning. The boys were growing and changing every day, walking more steadily, saying new words, developing distinct personalities. Thomas was bold and adventurous, always getting into things and testing boundaries. William was quieter, more cautious, preferring to observe before acting. Benjamin loved them both fiercely, and he could see so much of Mary in them that it hurt. One evening after a particularly hot day, Benjamin suggested they eat dinner outside on the porch to catch any breeze that might appear. Sophia agreed and brought out cold chicken and biscuits and fresh tomatoes from the small garden she had started. They sat together watching the boys play in the grass, chasing lightning bugs as darkness fell. "I have been thinking," Sophia said slowly, "about the future, about what will happen when the boys get older and do not need a nanny anymore." Benjamin felt his stomach drop. "Are you thinking of leaving?" "No," Sophia said quickly. "That is not what I meant. I just wonder sometimes about what my role will be here. If I am just the nanny, then eventually I will not be needed. But if I am something else, something more." She trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. Benjamin's heart was pounding. "What would you want to be? If you could be something more, I mean." Sophia turned to look at him, and in the fading light, her face was beautiful and uncertain. "I do not know. I just know that I care about those boys as if they were my own. I care about this place. I care about—" She stopped, seeming to lose her courage. "About what?" Benjamin prompted, barely breathing. "About you," Sophia whispered. "I care about you, Benjamin. I know I should not. I know it is too soon after Mary, and I am just the hired help, and there are probably 100 reasons why this is wrong, but I cannot help how I feel. You are a good man and a good father, and being here with you and the boys has made me happier than I have been in years. I am sorry if that makes things awkward between us. I just needed to say it." Benjamin stared at her, his mind reeling. She had said it first. She had been brave enough to voice what he had been feeling for weeks, and now he had a choice to make. He could protect himself and push her away, or he could be brave too. "It does not make things awkward," he said finally. "Or if it does, then I have been feeling awkward for weeks now, because I care about you too, Sophia. More than I should, more than I thought I could after losing Mary. You came into our lives when we needed you most, and you have given us so much more than just help. You have given us hope. You have given me a reason to smile again." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Truly? Truly?" Benjamin said. He reached out and took her hand, feeling the calluses on her palm from work and the strength in her fingers. "I do not know what the proper timeline is for these things. I do not know what people will say or if Mary would approve, but I know that life is short and uncertain, and when you find something good, you should hold on to it. You are something good, Sophia. Something very good." She squeezed his hand, and they sat there together as darkness fell completely and the stars came out one by one. The boys had tired of chasing lightning bugs and were sitting in the grass, yawning. Benjamin knew he should take them inside and get them ready for bed, but he did not want to let go of Sophia's hand, did not want to break this moment. "What do we do now?" Sophia asked softly. "I suppose we figure it out as we go," Benjamin said. "That is all anyone can do, really. But I want you to know that I am not looking for someone to just take care of my sons. I am looking for a partner, someone to build a life with. If that is something you might want too, then we can take it slow and see where it leads." "I would like that very much," Sophia said, and when she smiled, Benjamin felt as though the sun had come out even though it was full night. They courted after that, though it was a strange kind of courtship since they already lived in the same house and spent all their time together. But there was a difference now, an acknowledgement of feelings that changed the way they moved around each other. Benjamin brought her wildflowers from the fields when he came in from work. Sophia made his favorite foods and darned his socks, and left him small notes tucked in his coat pockets. They talked late into the evenings after the boys were asleep, sharing stories of their pasts and dreams for the future. Benjamin told her about growing up in Missouri, about his parents who had died in a cholera outbreak when he was 20, about meeting Mary at a church social and knowing immediately that she was the one. He told her about the joy of the boys being born and the terror of almost losing Mary during the delivery. He told her about his grief and his guilt, and his fear that he would never be whole again. Sophia told him about her lonely childhood as the daughter of a widowed professor, about her love of books and learning, about her determination to become a teacher despite the obstacles. She told him about watching her father fade after an illness and the desolation of finding herself completely alone in the world. She told him about the hope she had felt when she decided to come to Texas, and how devastating it had been to be stranded in Johnson City with no money and no prospects. "And then I heard the boys crying," she said one night, "and I thought maybe I could help just this once, do something useful instead of feeling sorry for myself. I never imagined it would lead to this." "To what?" Benjamin asked, though he thought he knew. "To a home," Sophia said simply. "To a family. To love." Benjamin pulled her close, and they sat together on the porch swing he had hung from the rafters, listening to the night sounds and feeling the gentle night breeze. He kissed her for the first time that night, a sweet tentative kiss that tasted of possibility and promise. Sophia kissed him back, her hand coming up to cup his cheek, and Benjamin felt something inside him that had been broken begin to mend. They married in October, just as the weather began to cool and the leaves on the cottonwood trees turned gold. It was a small ceremony in the church in Johnson City, with just a few neighbors and the boys in attendance. Thomas and William were ring bearers, stumbling down the aisle with Sophia's friend from town guiding them, and when they reached the front, they climbed into Benjamin's arms and refused to be put down. The preacher smiled and said the vows over the happy chaos, and when Benjamin kissed his new wife, the boys cheered and clapped their hands. After the wedding, they had a simple celebration at the ranch with food and music. Someone had brought a fiddle, and they danced in the yard as the sun set, taking turns spinning each other around while the boys ran between their legs. Benjamin held Sophia close and thought about how far he had come from that terrible night when Mary had died and the world had seemed to end. He would always miss Mary, would always carry her memory in his heart, but he had learned that the human heart was large enough to hold both grief and joy, loss and love. That night, after the guests had gone and the boys were asleep, Benjamin carried Sophia across the threshold of their bedroom. She laughed and kissed him and whispered that she loved him, and Benjamin said the words back without hesitation or guilt. This was not a betrayal of Mary. This was moving forward, choosing life, honoring the dead by living fully just as Sophia's father had taught her. The years that followed were good ones, full of hard work and simple pleasures. Benjamin built up his herd and hired a few hands to help with the work. Sophia taught the boys to read and write, starting their education early, just as her father had done for her. She also started a small school in Johnson City, teaching the children of neighboring ranchers and farmers 3 days a week. The boys went with her, playing with the other children while their mother worked. In the spring of 1875, Sophia gave birth to a daughter they named Mary Sarah, honoring both Benjamin's first wife and Sophia's mother. The little girl had dark hair like Sophia and Benjamin's blue eyes, and the boys adored her. Thomas and William were protective big brothers, always watching over their baby sister and bringing her toys and flowers. 2 years later, another son arrived, strong and healthy, and they named him Samuel. Then came another daughter, Elizabeth, born in 1880. The house that had once felt empty and haunted by loss became filled with life and laughter. Sophia and Benjamin added on to it, building more bedrooms and a larger kitchen, turning it into a true family home. The boys who had cried through that terrible night grew into strong young men. Thomas inherited his father's skill with horses and became a renowned horse trainer. William had a gentler nature and a gift for numbers, eventually managing the ranch's business affairs. They both remembered Mary in the abstract way that children remember someone they lost young, but Sophia was the mother they knew and loved. Sometimes on quiet evenings, Benjamin would find Sophia on the porch, singing that same haunting melody she had sung the night they met. The children would gather around her, even when they were too old for lullabies, drawn by the beauty of her voice. Benjamin would stand in the doorway and watch his family, his heart so full it hurt, and give thanks for the stranger who had appeared out of the darkness when he needed her most. He told Sophia this one night, many years after that first meeting. They were alone for once, the children all grown or asleep, sitting together on the porch swing and watching the stars. "I think about that night sometimes," Benjamin said, "about how close I came to losing everything. If you had not appeared when you did, if you had not been brave enough to approach a stranger's wagon, if you had not sung to the boys." He shook his head. "I do not know what would have happened." "But I did appear," Sophia said, leaning against his shoulder. "And you were brave enough to ask for help, which is harder than people think. And the boys stopped crying, and we all found each other. That is what matters." "Do you ever regret it?" Benjamin asked. "Giving up your plans for San Antonio? Marrying a widower with 2 babies?" Sophia laughed softly. "Not for a single moment. I was meant to be here, Benjamin, with you and the boys and all the children we have made together. This is the life I was supposed to have. I know that now." Benjamin kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her hair. "I love you," he said. "I will never stop being grateful that you walked into our lives." "I love you too," Sophia said, "and I will never stop being grateful that you let me stay." They sat together in the peaceful darkness, 2 people who had found each other in the midst of loss and built something beautiful from the ruins. The ranch prospered, the children thrived, and the love between Benjamin and Sophia only grew stronger with each passing year. On summer evenings, when the grandchildren came to visit, Sophia would tell them the story of how she met their grandfather. She would describe the crying babies in the wagon, the fresh grave under the cottonwood tree, the desperate man who could not comfort his sons. She would tell them about the song she sang that night, the ancient melody her own mother had sung to her, and how it had stopped the crying and changed all their lives. The grandchildren would listen with wide eyes, and they would beg her to sing the song for them. Sophia would smile and gather them close, and her voice would rise clear and sweet in the Texas night, the same song that had brought a grieving cowboy's crying boys back to sleep so many years before. And Benjamin would listen from wherever he was, on the porch or in the barn or walking in from the fields, and he would remember that terrible, beautiful night when a stranger appeared out of the darkness and saved them all. He would remember the sound of her voice cutting through his son's cries, the sight of her holding Thomas while William clung to her skirt, the moment he realized that sometimes miracles came in the form of wandering teachers with nowhere else to go. The years passed, as years do, bringing changes and challenges. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, economic downturns and personal losses. Benjamin's hair turned gray, then white. Sophia developed lines around her eyes from squinting in the sun, and around her mouth from smiling. They buried friends and celebrated births, watched their children marry and their grandchildren grow. Through it all, they held on to each other, the cowboy and the stranger who had sung his boys to sleep. They built a legacy not just of land and cattle, but of love and family, of choosing hope over despair and life over grief. They proved that it was possible to honor the past while embracing the future, to carry loss without being crushed by it, to love again after heartbreak. In 1898, on their 25th wedding anniversary, Benjamin took Sophia back to the cottonwood tree where Mary was buried. It was something they did occasionally, a pilgrimage of sorts, a way of acknowledging the past that had brought them together. The tree had grown tall and strong, its branches spreading wide to provide generous shade. Benjamin had placed a simple marker there years ago, and Sophia always left wildflowers when they visited. "Do you think she would approve?" Benjamin asked, standing with his arm around Sophia's waist. "Of us, I mean. Of everything that came after." Sophia was quiet for a moment, considering. "I think she would want her sons to be happy and loved. I think she would want you to have a full life, not a half-life lived in mourning. I think she would want what any mother wants, for her children to thrive. And they have thrived, Benjamin. You have raised good men, good people. You have built something lasting. I think she would be proud." Benjamin nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I hope so. I have tried to do right by her memory, by the boys, by you. I have tried to be worthy of the second chance I was given." "You are worthy," Sophia said firmly. "Never doubt that. You are a good man, Benjamin Dalton. You always have been." They stood there together under the cottonwood tree, two people who had found each other in the darkest of times and built a love that had lasted decades. The wind rustled through the leaves overhead, and somewhere in the distance they could hear the lowing of cattle and the laughter of their grandchildren playing at the house. Life was good, Benjamin thought. Life was very good indeed. As they walked back to the house, hand in hand, Sophia began to hum that familiar melody, the song that had started everything. Benjamin smiled and joined in, his rough voice blending with hers, and together they made music in the fading afternoon light. That night, surrounded by their children and grandchildren at the anniversary celebration, Benjamin stood and raised his glass. "I want to propose a toast," he said, his voice carrying across the crowded room. "To my wife, Sophia, who came into my life when I needed her most, who sang my sons to sleep when I could not, who has been my partner and my love for 25 years. You are the greatest blessing I have ever known, and I thank God every day that you were walking on that road the night I needed you." Sophia's eyes filled with tears as everyone raised their glasses and cheered. She stood and kissed Benjamin, and their children and grandchildren surrounded them, a living testament to the love they had built together. Thomas stepped forward, now a man of 27, with a wife and children of his own. "I want to say something too," he said. "William and I do not remember our birth mother, but we have been told she was a wonderful woman who loved us very much. We carry her in our hearts. But the mother we know, the mother who raised us and loved us and made us who we are today, is Sophia. You are our mother in every way that matters, and we love you with all our hearts." William nodded in agreement, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "You sang us to sleep that night, and you have been singing us through life ever since. Thank you for choosing us, for choosing Dad, for making this family what it is." Sophia could not speak through her tears, so she simply gathered her boys close and held them, these men who had once been crying babies in a wagon. Benjamin put his arms around all three of them, and for a moment, time seemed to collapse. He could see the past and the present all at once, could see the grieving widower he had been, and the contented husband and father he had become, could see the tiny babies who had needed their mother and the grown men who still did, in their own way. The party continued late into the night, with music and dancing and storytelling. The grandchildren fell asleep in various corners, exhausted from playing. The younger children begged Sophia to sing, and she obliged, her voice still clear and beautiful, even after all these years. She sang the lullaby that had brought the boys peace that terrible night. And as she sang, Benjamin looked around at the life they had built together and felt a profound sense of gratitude. He thought about all the choices that had led to this moment, his decision to come to Texas, Mary's death, terrible as it was, Sophia's stage being overbooked, her horse going lame, the seemingly random series of events that had brought them all to the same place at the same time. Some people would call it fate, others would call it chance. Benjamin chose to call it grace. As the last notes of the lullaby faded away, the youngest grandchild, a little girl of 3, looked up at Sophia with sleepy eyes. "Will you sing me to sleep too, Grandma?" she asked. "Of course, my darling," Sophia said, scooping her up. "That is what grandmas are for." Benjamin watched her carry the child inside, her voice already starting another gentle song, and he felt his heart swell with love. This woman, this incredible woman, had given him back his life when he thought it was over. She had loved his sons as her own, had given him more children, had built a home and a family from the ashes of his grief. Later that night, when all the guests had gone and the house was quiet, Benjamin and Sophia lay in bed together, holding hands in the darkness. They were both tired, but it was the good kind of tired, the exhaustion that came from a day well spent among people you loved. "It has been a good life," Benjamin said softly. "Hasn't it?" "The very best," Sophia agreed. "I would not change a single thing. Not even the hard parts, the struggles?" "Especially not those," Sophia said. "The hard parts made us who we are. They taught us what we were capable of, and they brought us together." Benjamin lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "I am going to love you until my last breath," he said. "And probably beyond that." "I am counting on it," Sophia said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. They lay together in the comfortable silence of long marriage, listening to the night sounds through the open window. Somewhere in the house, a child murmured in sleep. Somewhere on the range, their cattle grazed peacefully. Somewhere in the vast Texas sky, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. And in that moment, Benjamin Dalton understood what true happiness was. It was not the absence of pain or loss. It was not a life without struggle. It was this: lying beside the person you loved, surrounded by family, knowing that you had built something meaningful with your days. It was the peace that came from living fully, from choosing love over fear, from opening your heart even when it had been broken. He had been a cowboy whose boys cried through the night, lost and desperate and drowning in grief. And then a stranger had appeared, a woman with a voice like honey and a heart big enough to hold them all. She had sung his sons to sleep, and in doing so, she had awakened something in him that he thought had died with Mary. Hope. That was what she had given him. Hope and love and a future worth living. As Benjamin drifted off to sleep, his last thoughts were of gratitude. Gratitude for Mary, who had given him his boys. Gratitude for Sophia, who had saved them all. Gratitude for the life he had been given, with all its joys and sorrows, its losses and its blessings. And gratitude for that night so long ago, when a stranger's song had changed everything. The end came peacefully for both of them, many years later. Benjamin went first, in his sleep one warm spring night in 1905, his hand still holding Sophia's. He was 58 years old and had lived a full and meaningful life. His sons were there when he passed, and his daughters and Sophia, always Sophia, singing him gently into whatever came next. Sophia followed him 2 years later, slipping away quietly one autumn evening, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. Her last words were about Benjamin, about how she was going to find him and dance with him again. And then she was gone, leaving behind a legacy of love and family that would endure for generations. They buried her beside Benjamin on the ranch they had built together, under a sky so vast and blue, it seemed to go on forever. The whole town came to the funeral, and people stood and told stories about the cowboy and the stranger who had found each other and created something beautiful. They talked about Sophia's singing, about how she had taught 3 generations of children in Johnson City. They talked about Benjamin's integrity, about how he had built one of the most successful ranches in the county through hard work and fair dealing. But mostly they talked about the love between Benjamin and Sophia, about how it had been evident in every glance and gesture, how they had been true partners in every sense of the word, about how their story had given hope to others who had faced loss, showing that it was possible to love again, to build again, to be happy again. Thomas and William stood at their mother's grave, middle-aged men, now with gray in their hair and grandchildren of their own. They held each other and wept, remembering the woman who had appeared out of the darkness when they were crying babies, and had loved them as fiercely as any mother born. They remembered her songs, her stories, her endless patience, her generous heart. "She saved us," Thomas said through his tears. "She saved all of us." "She did," William agreed. "And now she is with Dad, just like she wanted. They are together again." As the mourners filed away and the sun began to set, a meadowlark sang from a nearby fence post. The song was sweet and clear, floating across the Texas plain, and everyone who heard it thought of Sophia and smiled through their tears. It seemed fitting somehow that music should mark her passing, just as her music had marked so many of the important moments of her life. The ranch stayed in the family for generations, passed down from parents to children, a living legacy of Benjamin and Sophia's love. The story of how they met became family legend, told and retold at gatherings and celebrations. The grandchildren told it to their grandchildren, and those children told it to theirs, ensuring that the cowboy and the stranger who sang would never be forgotten. And on quiet nights, when the wind blew across the Texas prairie and the stars came out in their millions, some people swore they could hear singing, a woman's voice, clear and sweet, carrying that ancient lullaby across the years. They said it was Sophia, still singing, still loving, still watching over the family she had helped to build. Others dismissed it as imagination or the wind playing tricks. But the children believed, as children always do. They believed in the power of love to transcend death, in the strength of family bonds, in the magic of a song that could soothe crying babies and heal broken hearts. And perhaps they were right to believe. Perhaps love did endure beyond the grave, binding souls together across time and distance. Perhaps the singing was real, a reminder that the greatest gifts we give each other are not material things, but moments of grace and acts of love. The story of Benjamin and Sophia became a touchstone for the family, a reminder of where they came from and what mattered most. When times were hard, they remembered how Benjamin had rebuilt his life from ruins. When someone suffered loss, they remembered that Sophia had found joy again after grief. When love seemed difficult, they remembered two people who had chosen each other despite all the reasons not to. The old house still stands, renovated and expanded over the years, but recognizable as the home Benjamin and Sophia made together. The cottonwood tree where Mary is buried has grown massive, its branches spreading protective shelter over her grave and the graves of Benjamin and Sophia beside her. Three souls at rest, bound together by love and loss and the strange twists of fate that shape our lives. The story that began with crying babies in a wagon and a stranger's song ended with a love that lasted a lifetime and beyond. It proved that sometimes the darkest moments give way to the brightest blessings, that the end of one chapter can be the beginning of a better one, that the human heart has an infinite capacity for healing and hope. Benjamin and Sophia's descendants still gather at the ranch every year for a reunion. They come from all over, bringing their families, reconnecting with cousins, and sharing stories. And without fail, at some point during the gathering, someone will ask for the story of the cowboy whose boys cried through the night until a stranger sang them back to sleep. And someone will tell it, passing the legend down to another generation. They will talk about grief and grace, about chance encounters that change everything, about love found in unexpected places. They will remind the children that life is full of second chances if we are brave enough to take them, that in helping a stranger might change your whole life. That song and story bind us together across time. Then they will ask the youngest member of the family to sing Sophia's lullaby, the melody she brought with her that fateful night and passed down through the years. And as the sweet notes float across the Texas evening, everyone will remember. They will remember where they came from, who they are, and why love matters more than anything else in this world. That is the legacy of Benjamin Dalton and Sophia Jenkins, the cowboy and the stranger. Not the ranch, not the money, not the land. The legacy is love. The legacy is family. The legacy is the enduring truth that no matter how dark the night, morning always comes. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, it comes in the form of a stranger singing your crying boys back to sleep, giving you back hope when you thought all hope was lost. Their story is over, but it also never ends. It lives on in the hearts of those who remember, in the voices of those who sing the old songs, in the love that continues to flow through their family tree like sap through branches. It reminds us that we are all connected, that our choices ripple outward in ways we cannot predict, that kindness and courage can change the world. So, when you hear crying in the night, do not turn away. When you see someone struggling, do not pass by. When you have the chance to help, take it. Because you never know when you might be the stranger someone needs, the song that soothes their sorrow, the hope that saves their life. That is what Sophia was for Benjamin and his boys. She was the right person in the right place at the right time, and she had the courage to step forward and help. And in helping them, she helped herself, finding the family and home she had been seeking all along. Their love story, born from tragedy and built on trust, stands as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It shows us that we can survive the unsurvivable, that we can love again after loss, that we can build beautiful things from broken pieces. Benjamin and Sophia took the shattered fragments of their lives and crafted something whole and good and lasting. And every night in Texas, when the stars come out and the wind blows across the prairie, their story continues. In every parent who comforts a crying child, in every stranger who stops to help, in every person who chooses love over fear, But Benjamin and Sophia live on. Their song continues, passed from generation to generation, a melody of hope that will never be forgotten. This is the story of the Cowboy's boys who cried through the night until a stranger sang them back to sleep. It is a story about loss and love, about grief and grace, about the unexpected ways our lives can change in a single moment. It is a true story in all the ways that matter most, and it ends, as all good stories should, with love triumphant and a family gathered together, singing the old songs under a vast Texas sky, remembering those who came before, and celebrating the lives they made possible. The end.